Welcome back to my series on how to make amazing coffee. This episode, we're going to learn how to make the perfect cup of coffee for beginners using a bee dripper and a Chemex. Let's do it. In this series, we're going step by step to improve your coffee game at home. We're going all the way from slightly improving your coffee to making coffee so good that you could charge $5 for it at one of those places that have seats made out of reclaimed milk crates and Edison bulbs hanging up everywhere. If it feels like I'm glossing over some details, make sure to click the link above and start this series from the beginning. So we already made the French press, and this episode we are going to be making coffee in my preferred method of coffee preparation, the bee dripper. It's a single serving coffee preparation method, but if you have guests coming over, don't worry, we're gonna handle that in just a little bit. So pour over coffee is pretty simple. You just take some coffee, put it in here, and then pour some water over it. And I know that sounds kind of like that Black & Decker machine that you have at home, but trust me, this is a completely different animal. As I mentioned in the last video, your Black & Decker coffee maker only gets the grounds damp, the water's not hot enough, and you get a really mediocre cup of coffee. If we use this method, we are going to have coffee at the proper temperature and are going to thoroughly saturate the grounds so we extract as much of that coffee goodness as possible. So first thing we're going to do is start heating up our water and weigh out our coffee. All right, so we're going to be using 10 grams of coffee and a 13-to-1 ratio. If you don't know what that means, all that means is that for every 1 part coffee, we're using 13 parts water. I go into more detail as to why in my last video, but more or less, it's a dark roast, can't handle a whole lot of water, so we're going to use a pretty tight ratio, which means we're going to be using less water than if it was a lighter roast, in which case we'd be using more water. This is going to be about 3-ish tablespoons of coffee. Now, whoops, that went everywhere. At least I didn't shatter it like I shattered my French press. It's about 20 grams of coffee, about 3 tablespoons. Of course, the tablespoon you have at your house is different than mine, so it's not going to be a precise measurement unless you get a scale. All right, 20 grams. So I filled up our little gooseneck kettle here off screen, but I'm pretty much using over twice the amount of water I need to make our coffee, and I'll show you why we're doing twice the amount that we need in a second. It does not have to be a precise measurement. Now, in my last video, I talked about why a gooseneck kettle is not important for a French press, but it is super important for this form of making coffee, because you really need to be able to control your water, otherwise it'll go spilling everywhere. So we're going to take our coffee cup, put it right here. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to fold our coffee filter. You can see right there. I want to make sure you're folding the bottom part towards you and then the top part away from you. Put that guy in there. If you have a regular coffee maker at home, same rules apply. Now I like to use unbleached paper filters. Bamboo is the best, but this is just unbleached paper. I got it last time I was at Publix when I was in the United States. I miss you, Publix. I miss you so much. So then when your water is at temperature, you want to wet the paper, like I'm doing right here. Now, this is gonna get rid of all the papery taste from your cup of coffee because you're trying to drink coffee, not paper. And if you are trying to drink paper, hey man, more power to you. Different strokes for different folks. And as that's draining, we are going to grind our coffee. Now the coffee, we want it to be like a reasonably fine sand. Like you got a great deal on a vacation package and you're on the beach, and it's not that super fine sand that you saw in that Instagram model's video where they go to that really cool beach in Fiji or whatever, but it's still pretty good. That level of coarseness. All right, so the water's drained out of here. We're gonna dump it out. Dump our coffee in there. And then set it to 0, because we're only measuring our water in this instance. Now next we're gonna bloom our coffee, which is gonna cook off the carbon dioxide and allow the coffee to really penetrate those grounds. Or, I'm sorry, the water to really penetrate the coffee. You just wanna go nice and slow, barely disturbing the bed. It's gonna smell really, really good. It's gonna foam up real nice, and if it's not, your coffee's too old. And smell that aroma. We're gonna let that happen for like 30 seconds as the gases cook off. It smells like I'm a barista with a really good vinyl collection. So next what we're gonna do is we're going to add the rest of our water over the course of 2 separate pours, and we want a really gentle stream going in there. nice and gentle. So we're gonna have 280 grams of water. So we're gonna go about half and half or 40-60. All right, cool. We're not gonna let it drain all the way. We're gonna let it get almost completely drained, still a little puddle in there, and then add the rest of our water. So we get to 280 grams. All right, so we're at 280, and we're gonna let it drain out. And right before it drains out completely, we're gonna pull it off, because there's gonna be some, we're gonna get the bitter taste from the sediment at the bottom, unless if we don't do that. All right, it's almost completely drained. We're gonna pull it off, let it cool down a little bit, because if the coffee's too hot, it's gonna burn your tongue, A, and B, you're not gonna get all those wonderful aromas from it. And there we go. We just did some pour over coffee. Delicious. So you might be asking now, what if I have people over and I can't just do a single cup of coffee? Well, what I like to do is pour myself a cup of coffee, sip on it, talk about how amazing it is, and stare at them for the peasants that they are. You disgust me. I'm a horrible host. But if you're not a horrible host, we're gonna learn how to make this kind of coffee for multiple people. And we're not even gonna have to wait till the next episode. We're gonna do it right now. Can we just like cut to the next one? We're gonna learn how to make coffee with the Chemex. It worked. Amazing. Not only is this a great and delicious way to make coffee, but it looks super cool in your house. And even if you don't drink coffee, it looks like a super fancy decoration. And we're gonna put this over here because we know that my gesticulations result in shattered coffee equipment. You'll learn that in my French press video. And we're gonna heat up our water. And this one, again, heat up twice as much water as you need, because some of it is going to be used for the paper filter. I wish I would have gotten a bigger gooseneck kettle. 1.7 liters would have been great, because I find myself not having enough water when I'm making coffee for a bunch of people. So the real selling point on a Chemex is not so much the device itself, it's the filter, because it's this really, really thick filter made out of a special kind of paper. You can only use these filters on a Chemex, so don't try using the stuff that you get at the grocery store. You can see it's pretty much just a folded square, but it's great because it makes what some people believe to be a pretty clean cup of coffee. Some people like it, some people don't like it, but I think it's pretty darn good way to make some coffee. Grab myself a little glass thingy, and we're gonna weigh out our coffee. 20 grams of coffee, as before. I never use a spoon in the morning, by the way. I usually just kind of dump it in there and use my fingers, which I guess is kind of gross, but you're boiling water pretty much over it, so not a huge deal. All right, so we got our 20 grams of coffee. Our water's heated up. We're gonna pour some water over our filter. Now we're gonna take our filter, and when you open up the filter, there's going to be a side with which is 3 sheets of paper thick, and one side that is less thick, and you're gonna put the thick side near the spout. So we're going to pour our water over here. And when you pour over the water, it's gonna kind of cling to the sides. And it's gonna take a little bit longer to drain than your pour over because the paper is a lot thicker. All right, so now our water's heated up. We're gonna grind our beans. We are looking for a grind that is finer than a French press, but also coarser than a drip. And you want it to be closer to the French press than to the drip. Very nice. We got our coffee. And then before we put our coffee in here, I almost forgot to do this, we are going to go like that and just pour our water into our cup to heat it up. 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 Pour our coffee in there. We're gonna kind of give it a little bit of a shake to flatten out the grinds, give us a nice little bed there. Set it to 0 and then bloom it. Going for 40 grams of coffee. All right, so our coffee is properly bloomed, and we are going to add the rest of our water. Now, with this one, it's a lot more forgiving than the pour over in the bee dripper that we did earlier because the paper is a lot thicker. So don't even worry about doing it in multiple pours. You can do it in one pour. Sometimes I like to do a few, just to switch things up. Keep life spicy. I lead a very boring life. But if there's a bunch of people at your house and you can't fit all of the coffee in one pour, just do it in multiple pours because this top part here can hold a lot less water than this bottom part here. So you want to make sure you're doing really tight circles, just like in the middle right there. So yeah, just really tight circles. You don't want to be just dumping a bunch of water in there. Boom, 280, and we're just gonna let it drain. The reason you want that coarse ground is because if it's fine, it's gonna take like a million bajillion years to drain, which it feels like it's taking right now. All right, so our coffee is pretty much totally drained. We're gonna go ahead and throw out the filter. We're gonna kind of grab it at all four corners like that, and then toss it in the trash. Oh, and also toss out our water. So what we're gonna do is just give it a quick swirl. It's gonna release some of the aromas. Pour that bad boy in there. So a little bit left, we'll just leave that in there. And there you have it. You completed your journey to making awesome coffee at home. If you want me to make more videos, just let me know in the comments section below. And if you want to learn more about coffee, make sure to click right up here and check out the other videos that I've made about coffee. And you're probably asking the final question, how much cream and sugar should I add? And the answer is none. If you're making coffee, you should make coffee good enough that you don't need to drink it with cream and sugar. Because if you're drinking great coffee, putting cream and sugar in it is like adding ketchup to a $50 steak. But hey, maybe that's your thing, no judgment. Just kidding, tons of judgment. Shame on you. Do you use sugar and cream? Have you ever tried coffee black? What was your experience? What's your favorite way to drink coffee? Is it sitting in a diner or a $5 pour over from that fancy place right down the street? I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments section below. And until next time, this is the Hungry Gringo signing off.